Hi, I'm Kristin, a librarian here at Massanutten Regional Library. If you're doing dry January but want to lift a glass vicariously by reading a novel, I have some books for you. But first, let me note that MRL also has many nonfiction books with tips for doing dry challenges, drinking mindfully, and the like. Please ask a librarian if you would like help finding these resources. But now, on to the novels. First, I have the debut novel In the Shadow Garden by Liz Parker. This is the story of two families in Yarrow, Kentucky. Both families have a touch of the supernatural about them. The Haywoods own a tea shop, and they can take their neighbor's sorrow, which they feed into their shadow garden. The garden grows a unique and delicious crop. Meanwhile, the Bonners own a bourbon distillery, and their bourbon seems to have a magic all of its own. Everyone in the town has forgotten the summer of 1997. It has quite literally been erased from their minds. Changes in the present have members of both families digging into the mysteries of the past. While this can be dark in tone at times, the relationships between the characters, especially the woman, give it a warm feeling as well. Add some mystery and a touch of magic, and reading this book is like sipping a fine bourbon. It would be great for fans of Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman, or for the books of Sarah Addison Allen. Moving from bourbon to wine, I have Drunk on Love by Jasmine Guillory. Guillory is already a best-selling romance author, and she continues to come up with fun settings, characters, and concepts. In this book, Margaret Noble is the co-owner of a family vineyard, one of the few black owners in Napa. Though it is far from her normal behavior, Margot has a one-night stand with a man she meets in a bar. This is also quite unusual for Luke, a software engineer who has just quit his prestigious job due to stress and racism. Imagine their surprise to discover at work the next morning that Luke is the new tasting room associate that Margot's brother hired. The characters in this novel are brilliantly written, not just Margot and Luke, but their friends and families as well. Guillory does a great job of balancing issues ranging from racism to the ethics of office romance with heart, humor, and the mundanities of life. Lovers of Talia Hibbert's Brown Sisters series would enjoy this familiar combination. Okay, moving across the ocean, I have The Lost Vintage by Anne Ma. This is one of my favorite types of novels because it's like getting two books in one. In the current day, Kate is studying for the Master of Wine exam. Traveling to Burgundy for a few weeks of study at a family vineyard, she and her cousin's wife discover bottles of decades-old wine hidden during the Resistance, as well as evidence that one of their great aunts might have been a Nazi sympathizer. Excerpt from the great aunt Helene's wartime diary tell her story. This was a particularly well-balanced dual narrative. The intimate and intricate details of both Kate and Helene's lives completely transport the reader into the story, and it's impossible not to cheer on and worry about each of them. It's an immersive read with so much detail about the history of Vichy France for the average citizenry, the challenge of the modern Master of Wine exam, and living as a woman in a man's world in general. This is a good choice for readers of historical fiction authors who incorporate a family saga or a unique twist, such as Kate Morton, Kristen Hanna, Lauren Willig, and Christina Baker-Klein. So far I've covered paranormal, romance, and historical fiction, so now it's time for a mystery. The Merlot Murders by Ellen Crosby is the first book in the Wine Country Mystery series, which currently has 12 entries. One of the best things about this series is that it doesn't take place in California wine country, but in Virginia wine country. Lucy is in France recovering from a car accident when she finds out her father has died. Returning home, she finds the family vineyard neglected due to her father's gambling and comes to realize that his hunting accident might have been murder. I love this series, particularly the descriptive writing. Crosby paints a beautiful and accurate picture of the Virginia countryside and doesn't skimp on details of the wine industry. The characterization shines from this first entry, and as more installments arrive, the characters begin to feel like friends that you really know well. The supporting cast in Lucy's small town is fantastic, particularly the elderly, overly made-up, and gossipy owner of the general store. I really hope that there are more entries in this series. And finally, we'll switch from wine to beer with The Lager Queen of Minnesota by J. Ryan Stradal. Sisters Edith and Helen have been estranged for years, ever since Helen managed to take Edith's share of their inheritance so that she could fulfill her own dreams. While Helen makes Blott's Beer, her husband's family beer company, popular again, Edith struggles to make ends meet with her baking talent. Decades later, Edith's pregnant granddaughter launches a craft brewery, which is a catalyst for the sisters to reunite. Stradal writes about women and the Midwest with an incredible gift. He explores women's issues, family relationships, and other concepts with wit and warmth. His books are love letters to the things we consume and to his home, and somehow he makes both beer and the Midwest, which are pretty alien to me, feel comfortably familiar. Stradal's third book comes out in April, but in the meantime, readers might appreciate trying books by Lorna Landvik. All right, well, that's all the imaginary drinks I have time for today. So until next time, cheers and happy reading.